Power bill through the roof? At 320 Solar, that power bill will be no more. In fact, about 90% of our customers report lower solar payments than with electricity. That's more power in your pocket. 320 Solar. Power up.
It's the Audible with Joshua Cole Allen, live on Bucks Report.
Welcome to the Audible, powered by 320 Solar. I'm your host, Joshua Cole Allen, changing the call here live every Wednesday night on Bucks Report. Finally, say goodbye to your electric bill at 320solar.com. Put the power back into your hands. We've got an action-packed show for you tonight. We're going to have Sean Hammond, a Bears reporter at Shaw Media. He'll come in on Behind Enemy Lines, break down the Bears' strengths, weaknesses, and what he thinks the keys to the victory are this week. We'll also have Jacob Charnow back in studio. He'll come down. We'll talk around the NFL, talk about the Bucks, and all things related to that. Also, we'll have your comments. Everyone else in the comments, we'll be talking about to you guys as well. So let's start this show off with the kickoff. We're going to break down the top stories around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's jump right into the biggest news right now is the injury report. We have Chris Godwin is out. LaShawn McCoy is out. Justin Watson is out. Right there, you're losing your number 2 and number 4 wide receiver for this team, going up against a pretty decent Chicago Bears, especially with Kyle Fuller out there and a couple other playmakers they have in the secondary. LaShawn McCoy is another one who is out with an ankle injury. He's your third down back. Leonard Fournette is doubtful. Game time decision, probably won't go. That leaves you with Ronald Jones Jr. and Keyshawn Vaughn as your only healthy backs this week. Including your only receivers are going to be Mike Evans, who has not practiced all week, and Scotty Miller, who is a limited participant today. He is questionable as well. He'll probably give it a go. I know, talking to a source, Mike Evans will go. He expected not to practice all week, but he will be playing in tomorrow's game. Other injury report news, William Golston, who had a neck injury, limited earlier in the week, had full participation. He will be good to go. Rob Gronkowski with a shoulder, who had limited participation as well. He'll be good to go. Jason Pierre-Paul, he's still dealing with that knee. He's getting the veteran rest days, limited participation. They're not going to overwork him. It's early in the season. And Adom Kasu as well, non-injury-related rest day. Moving over to the Chicago Bears, they've had some injuries as well. Deion Bush, their safety, is already ruled out with a hamstring. Sherrick McManus, another safety, hamstring is doubtful, so there's 2 safeties right off the bat for them. Darryl Mooney, wide receiver shoulder, is questionable, and it looks like everyone else on the injury report for them will play. Akeem Hicks, defensive tackle, he's a stud. We all know Khalil Mack and how good he is on the outside. Bobby Massey, their tackle, and Josh Woods, another inside linebacker who had a thumb. Both participated all week. He looks like he's ready to go. So getting out of that, moving on, a story about one of the running backs who could have possibly helped this team this week with all the injuries is Kenjon Barner. He was placed in the concussion protocol after that vicious hit he took against the Chargers, and it looks like that's not the only news surrounding him. He's going to be suspended for 4 games for the violation of the substance abuse policy. He's in concussion protocol, so he probably wouldn't have been able to play this week anyways, but now that opens up a roster spot for them to bring somebody else in addition to O.J. Howard, who was placed on IR with his Achilles. He was out for the year. Sad to see him go. He was starting to really build some chemistry and rapport with Tom Brady. It looked really good out there, showing flashes of what we expected him to be. But with that, those openings, they have promoted Cyril Grayson to the active roster. If you remember the first 2 weeks, he was protected on the practice squad with that new rule, allowing you to protect up to 4 players a week. And then he was promoted to the active roster week 1 and 2. Since you can only do that with players twice in 1 year, bring them up and then bring them back down without going through waivers. The last 2 weeks he has been protected, but he has not been called up. So he stayed on there. Now he gets the chance to come up, especially with all these injuries. Another name to watch they may call up, seeing how they're going to be down some wide receivers, is practice squatter Josh Pearson from Jacksonville State. Small school fine. Guy put up like 32 touchdowns in 2 seasons. Really good athlete, and I think it could help the team if he does get called up. Otherwise, it's going to be big days for Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson should see some more actions, and then Cyril Grayson and Jaden Mickens as well should be sprinkled in. Another news also, Tom Brady, he's at it again. Threw 5 touchdowns, 369 yards to be your NFC Player of the Week and your FedEx Air Player of the Week. Now, Tom Brady is no stranger to Player of the Week, but this is his first one in the NFC. So now he has one in the multiple in the AFC and one in the NFC, becoming only the 8th quarterback to have ever done that in both conferences. He also has the most Player of the Week awards to date out of any quarterback. I believe Drew Brees and Peyton Manning are close behind. Obviously, Drew Brees is still playing while Peyton Manning is in the old folks' home. So the Bucs right now, they stand 3-1 after that loss against the Saints, and they're on a current three-game win streak. The last time they were ever 3-1, they've done it 8 times, and they've made the postseason only 3 times, and that's in those 8 trips as 3-1. But the most memorable one would be 2002 when the Bucs won the Super Bowl. So obviously, everyone's hoping for that outcome. And so far, so good. They look really well. They do face a challenge with this Chicago Bears team, who is also in the top 10 with this defense in scoring. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't think this Bears team is going to roll over and die, especially with Nick Foles at the helm. We've all seen what he can do. The run defense shut down the Chargers, though, and that's an area where the Chicago Bears are kind of struggling right now. They do have David Montgomery, lost Tariq Cohen for the year. Lamar Miller is on their practice squad, but he doesn't look like he's going to be ready to go to get pulled up. They shut down the Chargers to 43 yards on 23 carries. This run defense has picked up right where it's left off. Number 1 against the run. Number 1 not only in yardage, but also in yards per carry. It's a formidable group to try to run on, and every team has learned the hard way so far. Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler before he got injured. You had a good runner in Christian McCaffrey, obviously, that got shut down as well, and Melvin Gordon too. So there's no room to run on this team. It's going to be passed, and the young secondaries look good, really good. In fact, Antoine Winfield was named the Rookie of the Month, Defensive Rookie of the Month for his standout play. We've seen some turnovers finally out of this group. One tiny little wrinkle there. Carlton Davis has the third most penalties in the league with 68 yards, 4 of them defensive pass interferences, and for 68 yards. So that's kind of troubling. Hopefully he can kind of turn that around. It is a physical style play, but he needs to be a little bit more smarter than there and not make mental mistakes that's going to allow his team to beat himself. But talk about someone who's not making mental mistakes, Lavonte David. Man, guys all over the field. He's second on the team in tackles, right behind Devin White. He had 11 tackles on Sunday. The month before, he was named NFC Defensive Player of the Month. He's just shown everybody who he is. Lavonte David's in the building. Now we got some notoriety, some primetime games, and here I am, and he's going to take this league by storm. Him and Devin White are just an unstoppable duo. If one of them has a down game by their standards, the other one picks it right up. Tom Brady's still breaking records, still breaking them. He has the most regular season wins with 222 out of any player in history. He's got the most postseason wins. He is the GOAT, and it's going to be hard for this Chicago Bears defense to shut him down. They're going to throw the book at him. Akeem Hicks is very dominant in the middle, and that's one of the textbook ways to get pressure at Tom is through the middle of the line. He also has a little bit of familiarity with him playing in New England with him all those years ago. And we all know how difficult it is to slow down and stop Khalil Mack. Luckily, Trisha Wirfs has came as advertised. Guy's a stud. You've seen how he's shut down players week in and week out. Yeah, he let up a couple sacks here and there, or pressures and stuff like that to Cam Jordan. He let up a sack to Bradley Chubb. But going up against Joey Bosa, who is one of the premier pass rushers in the league, he held him to an under 10% win rate. That's right. The rookie, Trisha Wirfs, held Joey Bosa to a under 10% win rate. That means that Wirfs won 90% of the time. He's showing why he was one of the best tackle prospects in the draft, and he's just an incredible player for us. So speaking of some of these protected players that we've been talking about, I mentioned that Cyril Grayson's been one of them. They have protected 4 more players this week. They're going to be kicker Greg Joseph, who has been a constant ever since he signed on to the roster every week. And now with a new rule that says, players must go through 6 days of testing, look for a lot more kickers to be signed on practice squads because, as Greg Allman of The Athletic mentioned today, if your kicker goes down on a Tuesday, you can't sign anyone to bring him in. So look for a lot more kickers to come on to practice squads. We have a great one already. He's been protected all 4 or 5 weeks so far. Cornerback Ross Cockrell, good veteran to have on the team. Good for the young guys. He's been really good in the past, including against this Bucs team last year where he got a pick 6 off Jameis Winston in London, started 11 games for the Carolina Panthers last year. He has 49 starts under his belt. So another good one to have. Chappelle Russell, their 7th-round pick. He's been a constant on that protected list as well. They really like what he's been doing and think he's going to be continue to improve on that. And wide receiver Josh Pearson, I mentioned that he might get called up this week because of the rash of injuries at wide receiver. So I would look out for him. Again, small school, great size, great speed. And Jason Light loves those small school guys. So I'd definitely look out for him. A guy that they are bringing through the wire right now is former running back Asa Cedric Ware. He's currently in testing right now, obviously because of the new rules and everything like that. He won't be able to join the team for tomorrow's tilt, which they have already left for Chicago tonight. So he'll be on this roster most likely next week. He'll get signed. So that's something to look forward to. But it's going to be a very tight battle between the Chicago Bears tomorrow night. I have confidence in this offensive line. 2 out of 4 games, they've let up 0 sacks. They had a little rocky game to start, but they're looking better. They're progressing. They have 2 100-yard running games already, which is all they had from 2018 to 2019 season. So they're already looking really good in that area. And the defense just continues to impress and continue to get better. Nadam Kasu is looking, rejuvenated out there. JPP as well. Sue is actually the highest rated player for the Buccaneers on Sunday with a 92.0 rating. So he's been looking great. It's going to be a fun matchup tomorrow night. But speaking of that, let's get into that matchup with the Chicago Bears. We have Sean Hammond. He's a Bears reporter at Shaw Media at Bears Insider. You can follow him at Bears Insider on Twitter. We'll get him in here. So Sean, how you doing tonight, man?
Hey, Josh. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Just, excited for this game tomorrow. It looks like it's not going to be a snooze fest of a Thursday night finally between these two teams who are both 3-1 and look really good.
Yeah. We got an exciting matchup here. And I don't know, you could put whatever, I don't know what kind of stock you want to put into the Bears 3-1 record, but they're 3-1. So that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah, it's about the same stock you could put into the Buccaneers. I mean, they beat the Chargers, who are banged up badly. They beat the Panthers, who are the Panthers, and they beat the Denver Broncos with backup quarterback and just decimated by injuries as well. So these are 2 similar teams who have looked good. They had one big loss, to the Saints and I believe the Indianapolis Colts. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. These teams both look good on paper and look good so far, but how do they do it against top competition? So just run through the Bears for me a little bit. How are they doing? Injury report came out. You saw that. Are you worried about any of those names on that list?
Injury report doesn't concern me too much. I was a little surprised to see Darnell Mooney on there, but the fact that he practiced all week, or that at least was listed as full participant. I know they weren't really practicing in the short week, but that seems to be good news because he's really emerged kind of as their second receiver, more so than Anthony Miller. But then Deion Bush, yeah, he got hurt last week, and
the same stock you could put
maybe there's a little bit of concern. Just not so much concern with the safety position and in the secondary there, but he is a backup who will come in for some snaps. So if anybody gets hurt in that secondary, then the Bears are kind of in trouble without him. But overall, I mean, the Bears have been really lucky as far as injuries these first few weeks. Yeah,
Buccaneers not so much. Obviously, they've had Chris Godwin go out. Mike Evans has been injured. They lost O.J. Howard for the year. Surprisingly, knock on wood, this is particle board. I got to have some wood somewhere around here. But the defense has been mostly healthy. Sean Murphy Bunting left one of the games. Like their slot. Well, actually, he's been playing a lot of the outside, but one of their cornerbacks. But he came back this past week. So the defense has held up. The offense, we've seen some issues there. Obviously, 2 running backs are already out, McCoy and Fournette. Then you're looking at the wide receiver position. So it's been tough over here trying to get this offense rolling with people going in and out with injuries. But the defense, man, it looks great. So against this defense, how do you think this offense of the Chicago Bears will do? Now there's a quarterback change. You got Nick Foles in there instead of Trubisky. But you did lose Tariq Cohen, who was an integral part of that game, that passing game, especially on the third down. So what do you think this Bears offense can do against the defense?
Yeah, well, it really didn't look good this past week against the Colts. That was just a really bad offensive game for them. You mentioned Tariq Cohen, and I really think they're going to struggle to find somebody to fill that role. At least right now. I mean, I think David Montgomery had 6 targets in the passing game, but that's really not his forte. So as far as finding somebody who can fill that role, I think they're going to have to look elsewhere and sort of figure that out these next few weeks here. But then you look at just their whole body of work there against the Colts, and it was just not good. I mean, they really struggled on third down, the Bears did, and Nick Foles looked like a quarterback who hadn't spent a lot of time as the starter, which is, Coach Matt Nagy said this week, and he said after the game on Sunday that you got to give him a little slack because he hasn't been getting those first team reps the first 3 weeks. But at the same time, he came in and did fine against the Falcons in that same situation. So I don't know if I put much stock in that. I don't know what really happened there, other than the fact that you got to give the Colts defense credit. The Colts have a really good defense, and they pretty much bottled up David Montgomery in the running game. 28 yards for the Bears. That's not going to cut it, and that's not going to cut it this week against another really good defense against the run in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Tampa Bay has just been lights out against the run again, and that takes away from the play action. And Nick Foles, while he's done some good things, namely that run with the Philadelphia Eagles, he's never really got a good stranglehold, a good foothold on that quarterback position when it's been given to him. We saw that in multiple places around the league. We saw that last year with Jacksonville. When he does come in as like kind of a reserve guy, it looks like he has more success. But going in as a game play, I feel like it might be easier for teams to game plan against him. But there's some explosive weapons on that offensive side of the ball. Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, the tandem of tight ends that you guys have. I know you had a bevy over there this offseason. What was it, like 14 at one time?
Yeah, we all lost count.
But Cole Kmet is over there. He looks to be a good player. So I think that they can move the chains, but as you said, running the ball is going to be an issue for them against this defense. Maybe they can somehow find creases and somehow find lanes to run through, but this defense against the run especially has just been spot on. I mean, they let up some big plays, which Allen Robinson is definitely capable of getting behind defenders and going the yard. Same thing with Anthony Miller, but I think you set that up with the run game, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that this week. So going on to the defensive side, obviously Khalil Mack is one of the greatest pass rushers in the league. How do you think he fares up going against this young kid and Tristan Wirfs? And what do you think the defense does as a total to try to slow down this Bucs offense, even without missing some of their weapons? They still look pretty potent.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to come down to the Bears need to get a pass rush because Tom Brady's been been able to do whatever he wants in the pocket these first few weeks. They've done a really good job protecting him, and I think the Bears, are going to look to try to change that trend. They've had, they had a good game against the Giants in the pass rush. Robert Quinn had a strip sack, but overall, I think it's been a little bit underwhelming, especially given the amount of money that the Bears are paying some of these guys, in Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn and Akeem Hicks. But those guys, that's going to be the key for the Bears this week. And not that, sacks aren't everything. I know, a lot of the coaches talk about how Khalil Mack affects the game in other ways just by drawing all that attention from the offensive line, and that's true. But at the same time, you got to get results at some point, especially like a passer like Tom Brady is. And then, the Bears overall, they've had a good start defensively. They're one of the best red zone defenses, and they're one of the best defenses on third down, at least through 4 weeks. But if they've had the most success when they're causing turnovers, and they didn't do that against the Colts. And I think that, that they had opportunities. A ball fell right through Khalil Mack's hands, a would-be interception, but they need to capitalize on those opportunities this week.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. As you said, that's kind of been, it's not always about sacks, and that's how it was with Shaq Barrett the first 2 weeks of the season. He wasn't getting the sacks as a returning sack leader, but he was causing pressures and letting other players get the sacks. So they do have an effect on the game, even if it's not, in the form of totaling sacks up. Pass rushers like Shaq Barrett and Khalil Mack. What do you think the secondary does against a Mike Evans? You saw him kind of go off last week, the week before. He still had 2 touchdown grabs, only 2 catches and 2 yards. But how do you think Kyle Fuller will match up against them? And then what are your other secondary cornerbacks, safeties like can match up against some of the tight ends like Gronk or Cam Brate?
Yeah, so the Bears secondary has been a bright spot in my opinion. Kyle Fuller's off to a great start. Eddie Jackson's off to a great start to the season. And then Jalen Johnson, the rookie cornerback, has been really impressive, just stepping in and starting even without a preseason, and he's done really well. I think, it's always tough with those matchups with the tight ends. The Bears have done a pretty good job against that. And they really, when you look at the secondary as a whole too, they haven't been beat deep a whole lot. There was a big play from Calvin Ridley against the Falcons, the very first play of the game. But after that, other than that's the only big play that comes to mind as far as just getting straight out beat. So this is a secondary that's not going to get beat a whole lot. Which is, I think, one of the strengths of their defense. But like you said, this is going to be a challenge. And really the Bears have avoided, some of the toughest challenges that they were going to see. They didn't see Kenny Golladay against the Lions. They didn't see Julio Jones against the Falcons. Darius Slayton, I'm sorry, not Darius Slayton. Somebody else on the Giants went out at halftime or midway through that game, and they avoided another weapon there. But
Sterling Shepard.
Yes, Sterling Shepard. I was blanking there. But this will be a challenge. This will be another challenge, and maybe one of the best ones that they've seen so far.
Now, if you're just joining us, this is the Audible with Joshua Cole Allen. I'm your host. Powered by 320 Solar. Check them out at 320solar.com. Finally, say goodbye to your electric bill with 320solar.com. So let's talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of this Bears team. What do you think their biggest strength is, and then subsequently their biggest weakness?
Well, I'm going to go with the easy one first and jump right to the weakness. I mean, when this offense is struggling, it's just bad. It was bad in the first half against the Lions and the Falcons, and then it was bad all of last week. And that's a whole bunch of things. I don't know that you can pinpoint it on the run or the pass. It's just they when they're not playing well, they're just not in a rhythm, and it leads to these 3 and outs and these punts, and they've done a good job protecting the ball. That hasn't really been much of an issue. It's just they can't seem to get first downs, and they can't seem to convert on third down when they're in a tough spot. So that doesn't bode well as you look at their overall body of work. As far as they're 3-1, yes, but they had a couple of they got lucky a little bit in those comebacks. Everything went right, and I don't necessarily think that's going to keep happening throughout the course of this season. And then you look at the strengths. It's certainly still on the defensive side. I mean, we were talking about the secondary. I think the secondary has been really good, other than a couple of plays here and there. You want to see a little bit more out of that pass rush. Roquan Smith at inside linebacker has been really, really good. But overall, it's been good defensively, even if it's not necessarily 2018 Bears defense where they're causing a million turnovers a game.
Yeah, for sure. Those are things that I think the Bucs will be able to attack and kind of exploit. The defense getting pressure on that offense can kind of disrupt it, especially with the Nick Foles. It's going to be an interesting game to see how it goes. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring because of the defensive pressure that the Bears can put on this offense. And with all the injuries that the Buccaneers are facing, I think they might be able to definitely get some points on, but I think it's going to be difficult for the Bears to get as many points. I don't see it high scoring. Right now I have it 24-17 Bucs over Bears. What about you? What are your predictions for this game? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Bears can pull it out? They are at home. No fans in the stands, really. I don't know. Are you guys having fans right now?
There are no fans at Soldier Field, no.
Okay, yeah, because we just went up. We just had 10,000. They just said 10,000 in Tampa Bay this last week, and it's going to go up to 16,000 next week against the Green Bay Packers. But so that's an advantage that's not happening for either teams right now going forward. But what are your thoughts? How do you think the game plays out?
And it's weird. Like last week up in the press box, it's just dead silent. And when the Bears were struggling, I mean, it was one of those games where you're like, oh, if there were fans, they would be so quiet right now because this is not going well. But it's just weird being like, oh well, it's so quiet anyway. But I can't pick the Bears after what we saw offensively from them last week. 3 points through 55 minutes, and they haven't had a whole lot of time to figure that out. It's a short week. I don't know that they can figure out whatever issues were going on. I got the Bucs similar score to you. I think I had 24-13 or something like that when I wrote my picks this week. But it was not encouraging with the Bears this week.
Yeah, it's gonna like I said, it's gonna be a low scoring game. I feel like. And I could easily see the Bucs losing this game, especially with all the injuries. But I think they'll find a way to contain the offense with this defense, and I think the defense will kind of lead the way for them. With that said, Sean, I want to thank you so much. Why don't you go ahead and promote yourself real quick? Where can everybody find you on Twitter? Read your stuff, and again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, so I'm a Bears reporter for Shaw Media. You can find my work at shawlocal.com. That's SHAWLOCAL.com. Follow me on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. That's Sean SEAN Hammond. And I'm also I also run our Bears Insider Twitter handle too. So either one of those will get you to me. But Josh, I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do this again sometime. So there you go. Bears Insider Behind Enemy Lines, Sean Hammond. Again, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one. So there you go. There's some keys to the Bears, the breakdown strengths, weaknesses, what the Bucs can kind of look forward to, how the players have been, how the team has been. So there you have it right there. We're going to jump into halftime real quick. Before that, I just want to shout out Malectronic. Guys, check these out. Malectronic shopsoundsperfect.com. Headphones and speakers, use code BucsReport to receive 40% off your order. This is the hat trick. It's a nice little poolside, waterproof, sandproof, dustproof, shockproof, whatever proof it is. Sounds great, bumps perfectly. So make sure you guys check them out. Shop Sounds Perfect. It's by Malectronic, code BucsReport. Great stocking stuffers. Great. Christmas is right around the corner. And speaking of Christmas is right around the corner, my buddy over at Creative Customs on Facebook makes these custom pops. You can do anything you want. He's got a bunch of different characters out there. He's got a Venom Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. He's got a Galaxy Olaf. He does anything, any design you want, he can customize it. This happens to be yours truly right there with the BR, the Malectronic headphones, the little BR on the sleeve, my patchy beard that I have growing there. But yeah, check him out. His name is Braden Carlson. He's over at Creative Customs on Facebook. Real simple. Go check that out. And again, another great Christmas gift, stocking stuffer. People will love it. So jumping to halftime real quick, then we'll bring in our next guest, Jacob Charnow, the prodigy from Hard Count Football podcast. So big news, Bill O'Brien was fired. Finally, he's just been running that franchise into the ground, trading away multiple picks, multiple players for just, I guess you can say one man's trash is another man's treasure, but it looks like besides Laramie Tunsil, all he's collected was some trash. You can see Brandon Cooks is not panning out. They've just kind of really blew it. They're 0-4 right now, and it's looking like they are going to finish near the bottom of the league. But here's the catch. They don't have a first or second round pick because they traded to Miami for Laramie Tunsil. So they don't even have a consolation prize for finishing that bad. They need to turn it around very quickly. Romeo Cornell is going to take over the interim coaching right now. So they've got that going for them, maybe a little more competent coach. But that's what happens. It's going to be very tough to find a good GM that wants to come in here to rebuild this team with no first or second round pick this year. Also, an aging defensive lineman in J.J. Watt who can still be disruptive. They have a lot of aging players on that defensive side. Their offensive line isn't the greatest besides Laramie Tunsil. And, I mean, at least they have Deshaun Watson lockdown. Otherwise, that team is a mess. So some other things around the league, more COVID. Unfortunately, we all know Cam Newton tests positive for COVID. It turns out today Stephon Gilmore tested positive for COVID as well, reigning defensive player of the year. And people are freaking out because after the Chiefs game, he was right up in Mahomes' grill talking to him. So people are freaking out about that. It turns out he's asymptomatic, but still, it's still not a good look for the league who, for so much about player safety, they have pushed this game forward. It looks like another game's now in jeopardy with the Titans as they had someone test positive today. They're expected to return to the facility. Now that's not going to happen. The Bears game the Bills game that they're playing this weekend now looks in jeopardy. Not sure if they're going to have to postpone the game. There's been talk about the Titans forfeiting it. They're under investigation to make sure they've been following all COVID protocols. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. If it will, it'll be the first game forfeited due to COVID. And this falls again on the league. The league had all of this, these protocols saying, oh, we got this done, we got that. In case things happen, we'll be fine. And it's turning out that they didn't really know what they were doing. Not everything's going to be fine. They were very lucky that the Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Ravens all had surrounding bye weeks, so they can move one game to shift their bye week to another, so other teams could play. But they've been very lucky, and the losers out of this as a football team are going to be are already the Steelers for having their bye week so early when it was supposed to be week 7. And also the Bills, if they have to give up a bye week now to postpone it to see what are they going to do, play it at the end of the season. It's going to be very interesting to see how everything plays out, especially with things opening back up now. I don't know how they're going to reserve these stadiums, if they already have reserved them, what's going on with that. It's going to be interesting to play out. And quarterback news, Dwayne Haskins has been benched. Kyle Allen will be taking over in Washington for Ron Rivera. When he was asked, pretty much said we need someone who knows the system. Doesn't look like they're trying to lose right now, but they should be because Trevor Lawrence is right around there, and he's a much better quarterback. The thing about Dwayne Haskins losing his job, he didn't just lose his job. Fell all the way down to number 3 on the depth chart. Alex Smith will be the backup. So he wasn't even practicing today. He didn't get any reps. So what they say, you fall hard. And it looks like he's fallen out of grace with that coaching staff. Wonder if they'll try to trade him or if they'll sit on his rights. We'll have to see how that comes out. Former Tampa guy who was in here all of training camp, Michael Divinity Jr., formerly of LSU, signed with the Seahawks today. Good for him. I thought he would make the team on the practice squad. He didn't, so he's now a Seahawk. So that's good for him. Obviously, he'll be going through the COVID-19 testing if he already hasn't. Miami are losing their minds. This next game, they're going to stay at their 16,000 or whatever, how many thousand they had. But then they're going to go to full capacity. They've been given the green light by Governor DeSantis in Florida to go full capacity, full 65,000. Not that 65,000 people want to watch the Miami Dolphins play, but they'll have that option available. And that creates an issue because if they're opening up full tickets, unlike what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing, who will be going to 16,000 next weekend for the Buccaneers. For the Green Bay Packers, they started off with 10,000 against the Chargers, and still didn't even fill the stadium with that, with a lot amount of tickets. Miami is a travel destination. Florida's a travel destination, especially for people up north. So if they're going to open up the entire stadium, they're going to open up tickets. People are going to take plane trips down to Miami to watch their team play. Bring in COVID, bring out COVID, whatever's going to happen. Miami's a hot spot right now in Florida. Tampa's relatively calm, but Miami is where a lot of people have been hit hard, especially the older folks. So that's going to be something to watch and see if teams follow suit. As you just heard from Sean Hammond, Chicago hasn't opened up. We know New York isn't opened up. We know the Raiders aren't opening up at all this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out and how the safety protocols. You can't even keep the players safe, let alone 65,000 people in a stadium in one of the hottest spots in America. I don't know about that. I'm fine with DeSantis saying go ahead, but it comes up to Miami to say, hey, we can't do this. Last thing before we get Jacob in here, we've talked about this with testing. If players want to bring in testing, players to go through workouts and everything, they need to go through 6 days of testing first. So 6 days of COVID testing. It's one of the new protocols set forth. So as I said as well, with the Greg Joseph being on our practice squad, look for a lot more kickers to jump on practice squads, because if your kicker goes out on Tuesday, you can't bring another one in for the game. So with that being said, we'll bring in our guy right now, Jacob Charnow. Hard Count Football Podcast. I call him the Prodigy. Kid's a genius, knows what he's talking about. So we'll bring him in here. We'll talk a little bit of Bucks, and then we'll kind of head around the league and talk about what he's seen. So let's bring him in here now. Jacob, how you doing, my man?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Another great week. A short week for Buccaneers football. Back right at it here on Thursday night. Then we get a little break, which is nice because it'll give us more time to get healthy and against a intriguing foe in the Green Bay Packers. So what did you see this weekend from the Buccaneers? What did you like? What are you seeing around the league?
Well, listen, Tom Brady's back. Tom Brady, he was never going away. He never went away, but for some reason, he somehow came back. 5 touchdowns, 369 yards passing, and 1 interception. Fun fact, all 5 of those touchdowns went to different receivers. That 1 interception, though, was a pick 6, and Brady does need to cut down on those pick 6s because against better teams than the Chargers, it's going to hurt you so much. Those one-score games, you can't be throwing pick 6s. That's just not something that can happen. Ronald Jones, we finally saw him step up that workload. He got 20 carries, which is more. I think that's his season high. 111 yards, by far his best game. And Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin out on Sunday against the Chargers, we saw him come in. We saw him finally just do what we know he can do. 7 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Listen, once this team is fully healthy, we saw when they had both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin healthy, we saw that they won that game. Yes, it was against the Broncos, so it was a banged-up Broncos team. It wasn't really all that impressive, but when they play better teams, like they have to play the Saints again, when they play that Saints game, if Godwin, Evans, if Leonard Fournette's back, I think that they are going to beat the Saints the second time they play them. And this Buccaneers team, they're 3-1. Everyone was freaking out after week 1 that they lost to the Saints. This team is rolling now, and I can't see a team in the near future that's going to stop them.
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you on every point you made. Especially the interception, the pick 6, it was the same exact route to Justin Watson, except made on the other side. Justin Watson just overran the route again. He's got to be sharper on that. The first one was on Tom, bad throw. Second one was on Justin Watson, bad route. He ran about 2 yards past the sticks. But yeah, I think this team can, once they get healthy, they can run without anybody. And you've seen this defense is one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL right now. And, they have to play the Chiefs. But you saw what the Patriots just did to the Chiefs. They made them for about 3 quarters look, mortal. This is for lack of a better word. Now, I know they're going against another front runner for MVP as well in the Green Bay Packers, but I don't want to overlook the Bears because they present their own set of problems. They do have a very formidable defense. Even even if it's not the defense of a few years ago. Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack on the outside can both get after the quarterback. The offensive line has been really good after a couple bad games. I mean, they haven't let up a sack in 2 out of the 4 games. They've helped gain 200-yard rushing games, one by Fournette, one by Rojo, as you just spoke of. We haven't seen this offense fully healthy on the same field for an entire game. Even that Broncos game, Godwin went out late, and he didn't come back. So once these guys get on the same page, have the full offense rolling, clicking, I think it's going to be very difficult to stop this team on both offense and score against them on defense.
No, I completely agree with you. This defense is it's not going to be the offense that takes them to another level. It's going to be this defense because they are so ridiculously talented on that side of the ball with Shaq Barrett, Levante David, this kid, Antoine Winfield, who is, he came out of nowhere. I liked him in the draft. He came out of nowhere for everybody else. And he's been so ridiculously good. And I mean, JPP, I've loved JPP since he was in New York. Like everybody on this defense, these young corners, Sean Murphy, these are good players. These are players that are going to, there's not a lot of, the fact that they don't have any players that you could be like, oh, he's bad. He's not good. I think there's on every other team, you can name a guy and be like, he's not good. He's not good. I don't know how he's starting. On the Bucks, I can't do it.
No. And if you are, it's because of their youth and experience. Like if you were to make a case for Jamel Dean or, maybe Jordan Whitehead or Mike Edwards, you'd be like, well, I mean, they're solid, but they're not great. They're not good, but I don't even think you can say that. And the oldest secondary player is Mike Edwards at 24 years old. These are all super young guys. Now that also comes with, their cons because they're all be up for contracts and how do you afford to re-sign all of them. But Antoine Winfield, I called it. He was going to be my defensive rookie of the year. I'm standing true to that. He's just been all over the field making plays. He's always around the ball. When you see a tackle, especially if it makes it to the second level, he's there somewhere, at least standing around the pile, because if they're going to get through that tackle, they weren't going to get through him. So I love what I've seen out of him. I just think, as you said, this defense, we kind of talked about it earlier in the year. What would happen with the defense versus offense? Would the defense be able to carry the offense if they had struggles early or if they got themselves into trouble? And it looks like the answer to that question is yes, because this defense has played lights out. Again, number 1 in the league versus the rush, both in yards and yard per carry. Levante David and Devin White have been taking turns just sideline to sideline. Everywhere you look, they're making plays. One play, Devin White fell down and still got up and made the tackle.
Devin White is fantastic. He's so good.
Amazing. And then Levante David made an interception and then started running the other way before he was tackled. But yeah, I mean, these guys are playmakers and they've been all over the field. So I mentioned briefly at halftime that the Titans COVID scenario. What do you think happens with this game? Do you think it's postponed? Do you think it's forfeited against the Bills?
So first, I think that we know there was a complete there was so much irresponsibility going on within that Titans organization for why there was a breakout, because people tested positive, and now today came out that they were practicing, that there were practices held with these players, and Ryan Tannehill was there. So complete irresponsibility when it's during a time where everybody needs to come together to make this thing work, to finish this NFL season that we didn't think we were going to get, and to have one organization that could possibly ruin it for everybody is completely ridiculous. And how can I trust the Titans to now be responsible? How can I trust them to get healthy and stay healthy? Like, they should listen. I've heard a thing that they should have to forfeit that game against the Bills and have to forfeit that game against the Steelers, because if it was just a regular outbreak and they didn't find anything, whatever, you can reschedule that game. But there was complete lack of responsibility within the organization, and then the players went on Twitter to try and defend it, and they just sounded like they were defending COVID. It wasn't it was completely ridiculous. And I do think that I don't think this game's going to happen Sunday, because players continuously test positive. We heard that there was no positives, and then it came out, Schefter reported that there were more positives, and it's going to be a cycle of just a continuous COVID situation in this organization if they don't figure it out right now, and someone takes control of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a shame because they had a great playoff run last year, obviously losing to the Chiefs. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out going forward, especially the whole forfeiture thing, because that's what people have talked about. They might have to forfeit this game. And if they do forfeit the game, what happens next week going forward? Obviously, the league wanted to push this Chiefs-Patriots game out. Now it came out, Stephon Gilmore has COVID-19. He is asymptomatic, but people are freaking out, especially in Kansas City, because he was so close in proximity to Patrick Mahomes. It's insane what's going on right now. And for all the talk in the beginning of the year and in training camp and everything like that, it looked really like that the league had a plan in place for things like this to happen. Now it looks like Roger Goodell's just holding the bag. It looks like he's got no idea what to do, no idea what's happening moving forward. I don't know if this pops up more with other teams, what they're going to do. They're going to have to postpone or cancel the season.
Well, I think we could see a mid to late February Super Bowl. I don't think that the Super Bowl is going to be played when I don't know the exact date, but I don't think it's going to be played on the exact date that it's supposed to be because listen, people are going to keep testing positive. That's the reality of it. You can't expect after Cam and Stephon Gilmore get healthy and this Titans team gets healthy, that's going to be the last we see of COVID in the NFL, because it's not. Because guess what? There's going to be more teams that test positive. There's going to be more outbreaks within teams, and there's going to be a point where they just have to keep adding it onto the NFL, keep adding it. You're going to keep pushing up weeks. You're going to see week 17 games become week 14 games, and you're going to see those teams start getting pushed until we don't start the playoffs until January. That's a possibility that we don't start the playoffs till mid-January, and it's a shame, but that's just the situation we're in. Because listen, these coaches are instructed to wear masks, right? Everybody on the sideline wear a mask, whatever. What does that do? What is realistically? What is that? What you're wearing a mask? You're playing football. It's the most. Everyone's touching each other. This whole thing. How do you not get COVID? There's no way, and I might be just speculating, but there's no way that nobody on the Vikings tested positive. There's just it doesn't make sense, because if these players, and it wasn't just practice squad players, there was some practice squad players, but there was players who were in that game. I mean, we just saw Corey Davis go on the COVID list, and we saw Adam Humphries go on the COVID list. They were getting tackled. Both of them were in that game. I know Corey Davis might have just tested positive, but Adam Humphries was in that game. Adam Humphries played a bunch of snaps in that game with AJ Brown out. So it's insane. I don't understand how this, Roger Goodell, yes, he had a plan in place, but no one's sticking to it. No one is actually following the protocols, and the teams that haven't had any cases. That's the reality. The Jets and the Giants are both two teams that I know. I am more familiar with them, but I know for a fact that they've both followed COVID protocols, and basically nobody on those teams have any sort of COVID situations or anybody on that COVID list right now. And it's like this Dolphins thing. I'm sure we'll get to it, but the Dolphins, to allow all these fans in your stadium is completely like Florida doesn't close down for anybody, is what they're saying. Like, what? I can't. Like I
said, and I'm worried about the people who are like, oh, Florida is beautiful, sunny, it's freezing up here. Let's fly down for an away game and go see, and then bringing it, leaving it. It's it's crazy how everything's going. Kind of steer away from the COVID because it's exhausting, and it's mentally, like, even as a fan and as reporters, they're just like, what are they doing? What is going on? And you don't want to see it hit your team. I mean, I'm sure with the Jets, you'd probably be ecstatic, but
can we just end the season already, please?
But I mean, for the Bucs, they already hit hard with injuries, so if they're going to put players on COVID-19 lists, forget about it. And the crazy part is, we're not even in the flu or cold season yet. It's still, that's going to be ramping up soon too.
It's going to be rough. Yeah,
it's going to be nuts. But so we're running up against the clock here. Just want to talk back about this Bucs Bears matchup. What do you see happening? What do you think the Bucs can do to kind of slow down that pass rush? And what do you think the Bears can do with Nick Foles to kind of get their offense going against this stout defense?
So I have the Bucks winning this game. I have the spread right now is I think 4.5 towards the Bucks. I'm hammering that over. I think that they are going to. I think the Bucks are going to win by more than 4.5. I have them winning 27-13. That seems like a very reasonable score. I don't think I could see one touchdown pass from Nick Foles, maybe 200 yards passing, and 1 or 2 interceptions against this stellar Bucks defense that we were talking about. And I'm not going to count out this Bears defense because they are very good. Khalil Mack, like you were talking about before, is yes, he hasn't had an actual on-field impact in terms of when you're watching the game, but he's pulling players off. He's pulling offensive linemen off of other guys, and that's allowing, guys like Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, Tashawn Gibson. They're allowing them to shine. And so with Chris Godwin out, Leonard Fournette doubtful, LaShawn McCoy's out, Justin Watson's out, Mike Evans is questionable, and Scotty Miller's questionable. Like these are not. It's not going to help the Bucks, but to bet against Brady in primetime is absolutely ridiculous, especially against Nick Foles. I don't care what he did in Super Bowl 52. The Bucks are going to win this game.
It's his first time playing him since then, too. So, he wants to prove that he's the better quarterback there. I completely agree. I have the same score around there, 24-13, 24-14. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I definitely like the spread if you are better, and we'll get into that. Actually, we won't get into that because Friday Night Fantasy, the Bucks are playing, but I'm going to give it to you right now. If you are a better, hop on that because the Bucks, the 4.5 is a great. Buy the point if you want and keep it a 4 and you're still good. But I think they're definitely going to win by at least a touchdown. But I'm not counting the Bears out. They could come out of nowhere and kind of get it done, but especially with all the injuries on the offensive side of the ball for the Bucks, if they can't get the ball moving, it will be a really low-scoring game. Like I said, from my sources earlier, Mike Evans is going to be good to go. He knew he wasn't going to practice all week because of that ankle, but he felt great about it on Monday. So Mondays, it feels great. A lot better than it did, obviously, on the game Sunday. So it's not like it's been lingering and bothering him. It's more of a precautionary thing, and he'll be out there. But, I think it's going to be a great game. Finally, we don't get a snooze fest on
finally.
Thursday night.
Oh, my God.
2 evenly matched teams, it seems like. Both have 3-1 records. The Bucks have a better team on paper if they're healthy. The defense is definitely better. But, still, the Bucks wins are against the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Panthers. Their wins are against the Giants, the Lions, and the Falcons. And we've just seen the Falcons just explode on themselves every week.
Right.
They both have some loss against Indy, loss against Saints. Indy looks to be a pretty good team. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I will say this. I'll say that even if Chris Godwin, and I know Mike Evans is playing, but let's say he wasn't. Brady is going to be with no receivers and a great defense. What does that remind you of? New England. That's exactly what he was working with in New England.
Absolutely.
And, he'll be fine. Brady will be fine no matter who's playing receiver for him. I can't see this Bucks offense doing anything besides rolling over this Bears team. The defense is going to give the offense momentum, and it's just going to keep it rolling. And it's going to be one is going to give the other momentum, and it'll be beautiful to watch if you're a Bucks fan.
Absolutely. So we're going to get out of here because we're up against it. We got the sports web up next. Jacob, you want to go ahead and promote yourself?
Yeah, so Hard Count Football Podcast on YouTube, SoundCloud under that name. I do a live show, Hard Count Football Podcast, live Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, and then on Twitch with the Landry Football Network, twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football. Check it out. I do predictions every Sunday for every single NFL game, give my bets, and it's a fun time, very casual. And a lot of fun. I have special guests on every single week. I've had Josh on my show. I'd love to have him back soon. And it's a fun time. So check it out. And Josh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Whenever you need me, I'm here. Thanks for hopping on today. And back-to-back weeks I've had you, so it's been great.
Absolutely.
But any final thoughts you want to get to? I know you got some notes over there. Anything you want to?
That's really it. That was the extent of. I really wanted to get to that Titans, the irresponsibility of that Titans organization, and that the Cowboys should just pay Dak already because I don't know who do they expect to be better than him. It's not Dak's fault. It's that awful defense. So
exactly. All right, there you go, Jacob Charnow. Follow him on Twitter. Hard Count Football Podcast. He is a prodigy. 16 years old. Laying it out for you guys. And we'll see you next week, man.
Thank you, man.
Have a good one. So there you go. We had some great guests on behind enemy lines. We had Sean Hammond breaking down the Bears. We had Jacob Charnow doing his stuff. We'll run through because we only have a few comments. We'll run and we're up against it. We'll run through a few comments and then we'll get out of here. We have Steve Marsh saying, "What's up, JCA? Go Bucks!" Yes, indeed. Matthew Probus, "What's up, Josh? What's up, my man? Hope all is well." My wife making fun of my patchy beard. It's growing a little bit. Adam Zachary saying no. That was on Stephon Gilmore, I believe. My mom, hello. Insane. Yep, that's about the Miami thing. And then Bevev just with his onslaught of nonsense. I Cole C. Cole C. Cole. He's so dumb. But he's a good guy. Again, check out Malachonic, shopsoundsperfect.com. 40% off. Great stocking stuffers. Great everything like that. Great for Christmas. And then my guy over at Creative Customs, Braden Carlson, he can make you guys a custom pop if you want one of yourself or of anything you want. Like I said, he made a Venom Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. He's got a Galaxy Olaf, and he made a half Patriots, half Buccaneers jersey Tom Brady. So check that out as well. Great show, Broham. Thank you very much, Joshua Allen. I'm going to get out of here. Obviously, I want to thank 320solar.com, my sponsor. Thank you very much. Make sure you check them out at 320solar.com. Take control of your power. And then we'll just get out of here saying, see you guys next Wednesday on the Audible. And make sure you tune in to Friday Night Fantasy on Fridays. And coming up next is the Sports Web with Peter Blake. You guys.
We them bugs, and we taking over. 31 teams, best look over your shoulder. We them bugs. It's our time to shine. They ain't never gonna stop, and we on the grind, and we them bugs. Our team is louder, putting fear up in the league, and they folding tower. We the bugs, and we winning it all. The ship is in our backyard, and this year is ours.
Stay tuned for the evolution of sports talk television, the Sports Web with Peter Blake.